Let's do it.
Parry Talks. Welcome back to everyone. We're back. We're back home. I hate Zoom. I'm over Zoom.
Yeah.
I'm over COVID. I'm over everything. So coming back, it's a nice little achievement. Before we know, we might not be in this room soon as well. True to good reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Not second wave. I'm not talking about that. Might have a new sort of space lined up, but that's top secret still.
Nice.
We're joined today by a very special man. I don't want to say one of the most prolific brands in Australia, but I'll call it that.
Wow, it is. Yeah.
And maybe you just want to introduce yourself. What's your role at Pseushi?
So I started Pseushi in 2015. Started off as more of a creative outlet or just like a web store that I would throw things on. But Chris Lipsey, who's obviously got an office like a few meters that way, he jumped on board after like a few months of doing it. And that's when it kind of like, I guess a sense of partnership made it more of a thing, or like a proper thing to go after. It was a lot more motivating than just me doing it myself. And we did like a solid like 8 collections together, from I would say 2015 to last year. So, and then since then I've done a couple of collections on my own.
Beautiful. Yeah, sometimes even though it's someone's baby, like a project can be someone's baby, it's nice to have another pair of eyes to come in and be like, oh no, you should do it like that, you should do it like that. And then the motivating factor of that as well being like, you know, it's easy to work when someone else is giving you deadlines. For me anyway.
100%,
if someone's like,
yeah.
we need this by Tuesday, it's like, that's a lot easier than me telling myself I need it by Tuesday.
Especially having someone that's 100% transparent and honest with you, that'll come in and say, that's trash. It keeps you like kind of in check and go, okay, yeah, maybe I should have another go at it or whatever.
Just want to start, because obviously this is like technically a dance program, but Sydney nonetheless, and it's meant to be like a Sydney culture, Sydney identity. Sushi's a big part of that. But because I've interviewed so many dance people, that's a lot of where my following is. And I put the story up yesterday being like, you know, hey, I've got my boy Wes from Pseushi coming on tomorrow. Just like to hype it up a little bit. And you got so much love from the dance world.
Wow.
Especially the man, the legend Jackson Fester.
Oh, wow.
Fester. So I don't know if you did, if you wanted to comment on if you have any involvement in the scene, in the dance scene, in the weird world.
Yeah, like I've been doing graphics for Moonshoe for like, I guess since it started. Like he doing little jobs here and there, like cover sleeves, record covers, party flyers, that type of stuff. I've probably made more flyers than I've been to myself, but yeah, it's been a lot of fun working with him.
Yeah.
Creatively, he's like, conceptually, he's a genius. It's like it's been fun, kind of like trying to mind read what he's got inside him and trying to visualize it, but yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah.
Very talented guy.
Big Jacko. Yeah. And then obviously there are a couple elephants in the room we also have to address. We have been through this crazy COVID period, and despite it, you still sort of did plow through the 10 collection, regardless of.
Yeah, trying to.
We got it off the ground, and then maybe a bit of a pause now because there's been a lot going on.
Yeah.
But how have you been personally? How do you think it's affected you creatively? How's it been, you know, picking up a pen? Going back to the drawing board.
It's been super unpredictable. Well, the whole year's kind of been like that from the bushfires. And through COVID, through Black Lives Matter, it's been a huge roller coaster trying to figure out like mentally where I am positioned as a person and also as a brand. I think it's pushed me to reevaluate a lot of things, and I don't know, it's kind of like it's made me question a lot of things, like what do I want to achieve, or like what really matters to me, or what should matter to me. it's been interesting. Like it's probably a lot of questions that I should have already asked myself even before all everything that's happened this year. But it's like kind of, it's made me look at it like dead center and being like, this is reality for a lot of people in the world. What are you gonna do about it? Like, do you want to be, I guess, part of the problem or part of the solution type thing?
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, sometimes it takes that external sort of, not pressure, but like an external, obvious, like light bulb being like, look, I'm flashing, like, what will you do in the face of it? And I think sometimes people, like when starting a creative outlet, I don't know, maybe not so much for you, I don't know if you reflect on this too, where it's just like, creative people often just like, I've got this idea, I'm just going to do it, see what happens, if it works, if it doesn't work, who cares, without thinking of like, what's the ethos behind this, what's the value system behind this, and that sort of thing. So like, especially for me as well, I reflect on that. It's like, before all this stuff, I'm like, what is the actual purpose of, doing an interview or being a part of an editorial and that sort of thing. And it's like, obviously there's like a big reverse mirror on community now.
Yeah.
I think anyway. And to sort of lean on that as well, coming from the music background for me, fashion is so similar, the way it intertwines with culture. I think almost identical. And fashion culture right now is obviously taking a very big step up. You see Braindead raising like close to $1 million or something ridiculous. Or yourself just spreading awareness. So I just want to think, maybe for you, critically or culturally, why do you think something like fashion is so integral to be attached to, say, social change or significant social movements?
I think because of what people wear, whether it's uniform, like whether they have a choice or not, or whether they choose to, it's just been so involved in movements and revolutions in general. I think whether it's like berets or like a graphic t-shirt, it's always like something visually always, I guess, hits the nail on the head when you're trying to make a statement. And I think it's a really important, I guess, way to spread message, because so much of what you wear does come from a culture. Like it's almost hard to wear something that's not saying anything. You can't be completely neutral. It's like, I think, what was your question?
I don't even remember the question.
I think fashion's a big part of that for that reason, because similar to music, it's like you can't just make a completely neutral song that's not coming from a certain angle. I guess, I know some people do that, but maybe...
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
There's always a cultural attachment to anything you do artistically.
Yeah.
I think, like, whether it's using a certain beat on a hip hop song or using a certain art style on a t-shirt, it's like similar.
Exactly.
Because you're always going to interpret something that isn't yours and, reinstate it, reevaluate it.
100%. That's what I was trying to say. Yeah.
And obviously now Pseushi is obviously extremely outspoken politically. Like, everyone's all for the Black Lives Matter movement, of course. Maybe, I don't know, I just wanted to give you the platform to just sort of talk about how black art maybe infiltrates Pseushi from your creative side of the process. And also, how did it feel having that responsibility to be outspoken? Was it easy for you to just start talking politically, or was it did you have to think about how you're going to approach it first and all that sort of stuff?
I think growing up, it's always been, I guess, or especially American, African, black culture has always been around what I've been interested in as a kid. Growing up, being obsessed with the NBA, rap and hip hop. It's something that I've always gravitated towards, but I've never really been knowledgeable on what that came from. As a kid, as a privileged kid, and still as a privileged person, this information hasn't always been shoved in people's faces. It's been buried for centuries. And slowly, I guess, growing up, I would get peaks of it here and there, documentaries, movies, speeches, and you kind of know it's there, but again, over time, it gets buried in deeper and deeper, and it's only like little flare-ups here and there, you get exposed to it. And I think after George Floyd, I think people just really had enough. Like, I think people just felt that, although so late and so little, this needs to get out, and it needs to be said, and it needs to be heard. And for me, I just got to a point where, it felt wrong to not dig deeper and to learn about it and to educate yourself about it. And it's not, I don't really feel like I'm spreading a certain message, or I feel like I'm giving a voice to anyone. I've just tried to sort of document what I've been trying to look into and what I've been trying to learn about. And I don't know if it encourages others to maybe dig deeper and just understand the world we live in a little better, then I feel like that's beneficial in some way.
Yeah, of course, beautiful. And I feel like amplification is a really big thing right now, of certain voices, of certain opinions, of certain ideas that often don't get the limelight because we like to, but the world sometimes tends to suppress those ideas, or suppress those ways of thought because it threatens what we know as the norm. And I feel like through like this weird social change we're going through now with COVID, I think COVID's sort of not frustrated people, but it's made people think a lot harder about the world.
Yeah.
And with the Black Lives Matter movement coming not as a consequence of that, but almost from that sort of state of mind.
For sure.
It's amplified it, and it's made people think a lot harder about,
Well, it's almost like if you're forced to be indoors 24/7, and every time you see a screen, this is what you're looking at. It's almost like the perfect environment to have that
blowout.
Yeah. It's like, which I think, obviously it happened accidentally, but like I think it has really been beneficial, if anything, for people to really not ignore it and to dig to learn about it.
Exactly. Alright. They're the elephants in the room, but we had to speak about them, and I'm sure it'll keep coming up all the way through. But let's take it back all the way to the start. What was the moment, or the earliest moments of Pseushi as a brand, or as whatever it was? Obviously, it was a creative outlet at the start. What was your like deep initial thinking of like that first sort of like, I should start this thing?
Honestly, I was 24, 25 at the time. Actually, no, I was 22, 23. Sorry.
Maths.
I was finishing uni. Last year of uni at Kofa, and I just got really sick of myself being lazy and not doing anything, and just never really applied myself to anything other than like playing basketball, which didn't work out that well because I'm 5'7", but and I just felt like I need to really start doing something and force myself to do something. And obviously, being a graphic designer, and being interested in clothing, always been interested, it was a natural sort of decision to just start putting graphics on t-shirts. And it sort of just evolved from that. I didn't really like just one day sit down and go, I'm going to start a streetwear brand. But it just kind of, I think the world at the time was starting to pick up anyway. So I was just like, maybe I'll put this on a t-shirt, or maybe I'll do that. And it slowly kind of evolved into like a brand, I guess. But yeah, it was never really, I think a lot of streetwear brands, back to what we were talking before, like there was already a culture or already a subculture or a person of importance to start with, and then the merch is like based on that, which then becomes the brand. But I think like with me starting it just solely based on what the graphic is or what the brand is, was a cool way to attack it, because it kind of like forced me to think deeper about, okay, what is it I want to say, what do I want to put out in the world, and kind of reverse engineer that. Was really interesting.
Definitely. And we're gonna skip back and forth here now, 'cause I don't like doing it linear, 'cause it's boring.
Okay.
Because I hear one thing you say and I'm like, I gotta pounce on it.
Yeah.
A lot of people hate the word brand. I'm starting a brand. I'm starting a streetwear t-shirt, like the whole t-shirt brand sort of critique and that sort of thing. How would you categorize Pseushi? Would it be a community organization, a brand, fashion?
I would probably still now say it's a creative outlet. Like, I don't know if it is a brand, because like if someone walked up to me and go, okay, what is Pseushi about as a brand? I can't really sit down and say it's about this and that. I haven't really sat down and nailed it to like a list of keywords. It's sort of just what I'm driven by, either conceptually or graphically or aesthetically, and what I think would be a solid idea to put out into the world. It's not really like I can't write like a brand bio about it. It's like I've tried to. It's like I've gone on my website and go, I should probably make an about page, and I sit down, I'm like, it's just what it's on the site. Like,
I think there's a beauty in the ambiguity of something like that.
I
mean, my friends talk a lot about pelvis. And it's just like, what the hell is this? Like, no one really knows. Like, there's some cool t-shirts or there's some cool parties, but like, who's pelvis? What's pelvis? Like, who? Like, what is going on? And I feel like Pseushi sort of also taps into that, where it's just like, with one word, it can mean so much and have so much, not just clothing wise, but just like, there's definitely a culture attached to Pseushi that's just Pseushi. Like, no one even knows what it is.
Well, I've always thought, like, okay, if you want to go out and make graphic tees, how deep are you gonna get? How it's a t-shirt, and it's like, if you are concentrating on a specific topic or a specific message for one thing, then put the focal point on that one thing when you release it. There's no overarching, like, you know, how important are you gonna try and be? Like, not to like throw shade on anyone else, but I'm just so I'd rather just, you know, go out, make fun graphics, and then if I feel like there's something that needs to be said about a certain thing or something I really want to throw out, then just put the focal point on that.
And like, this might be a bit controversial to say, but I feel like for some people to see that so publicly would be like what Golfwang was early on, where it's just like, there was no clear graphic direction or anything. It was just like, Tyler liked this font, so he put it on a t-shirt and put it out. And then sort of it's evolved to be like a lot more higher fashion, that sort of thing. It's changed heaps, and it feels like now it's got like that overarching sort of vibe. But early on, it was very much just like, whatever this person thinks is cool, he'll put it on this, put it out, and that sort of thing. Where it wasn't necessarily merchandise for an influencer. It was its own sort of separate thing. That was attached to this person's brain, which is sort of cool. But yeah, I could have a 2-hour conversation about the rise and fall of Golfwang. Shit, amazing. I'm gonna be. You don't even have to answer this question if you don't want, because I've been doing journalism for so long. I know so much about this, and this is the devil's question.
Oh, throw it out.
Because my mum asks me this every single day. I wear a Pseushi thing as well.
Okay.
Where does the name come from? Why is it Pseushi with a P?
God, I've just been dying to... You think you get it asked every day? Boy, okay,
Wait, get the timestamp. This needs to be 21:58.
22 minutes, listen up. Okay. Why the hell is it called Pseushi, and what is that? This is going to be underwhelming for a lot of people, I know, but at least it's out there. I started my creative outlet as an online store to put out, you know, t-shirts, prints, posters, or whatever else I intend to put on. And the original name I had was Pseudonym Store. So it was like this anonymous,
Yeah.
mysterious,
Edgy.
yeah. And then everyone sees me put on social media, and they're like, oh, what's pseudonym store? What's that? And I'm like, okay, so you know pseudonym, and they're like, what's that? And I'm like, why don't people know the word I don't know, it's like like a pseudonym, like an alias, but it became like really hard to explain to people. I'm just like, I thought people would know what a pseudonym is. I don't know, it's weird. And they didn't know how to spell it, so I'm just like, okay, this is a bit of a roadblock in like trying to get people onto that thing, because it's just like completely backfired. They're just like, what the hell is this pseudonym? Exactly, yeah. So then I was like, okay, I better like shorten this thing so people can bloody spell it. I was eating sushi at the time, so I was just like, fuck it, sushi.
That's right.
But then, do you ever like come up with an idea and you don't really have a reason for it, and then later on you kind of
it makes sense.
Justify it?
Yeah.
It like becomes clear, and you try and claim that as the original idea. So the second idea that came to me was like being like an Australian-born Asian person. People have often called me like a banana, or like I don't know, it's probably like racial anyway.
Just
but
racist.
Yeah, just outright racist. But like the word sushi and like mixing it with pseudo, kind of like aligned somehow, like a fake. I don't know. But that was another layer to it. But anyway, I don't even know if that made sense, or if people have been looking forward for this answer. But there it is.
As well, not to get all deep.
Yeah.
But like, if you imagine some mum in Rose Bay in like 1980, rich, and you like spell the word sushi, there's a chance they'll spell it like that.
Maybe.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, there's a layer to that.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah.
Maybe
deep.
It's
deep. I don't know. 22-year-old me was onto something.
Yeah, it always sort of happens like that though, where it's just like some bullshit, and then if the word looks cool, it sticks. And it's almost better when there's no deep emotional attachment to it.
Yeah.
I think, because it lives in its own world. Whereas like if you make it like something pretty common, or something that like is obviously attached to you, which is a big mistake I've made with this fucking podcast, it loses that sort of like identity and like just by being by itself, its own entity.
It's a big commitment.
Really cool.
Like you're like trying to think of a word or name and know that it will be good for 5 or 10 years. It's like, it's pretty hard. At
the same time though, I think it might be overrated, where it's like you could, like, I think if you made a sushi t-shirt with another word that was just as pretty to look at, do you think that it would still be the same brand, or do you think the letters PSESHI actually mean something to people?
I think
it's hard to tell whether it's a risk or whether it's just like it would have worked anyway because the brand exists outside of just the word.
I think as long as it's not a shit name,
facts.
If it doesn't like just age terribly bad, it will do fine as long as your brand that you construct around it is good.
Definitely.
But I don't know.
Yeah, right. Now we're actually getting a bit more deep. That was an excellent sidetrack. I think my first interaction with sushi was downstairs next door. When you had that little pop-up.
Down in the space next door. Yeah.
When you had that little pop-up thing.
Frank Strong's.
Yeah, that was a good night. Chaos night. They're giving it for free. I'm like, sure.
Oh, dude.
Anyway, I think that was my first interaction with it, as in seeing it in a physical space, not just online on Instagram and that sort of thing. And there was like, there's definitely a communal aspect to sushi, just in the way that you got it in people's hands or people's eyes and that sort of thing, whether like attaching it to certain brands or communities. Like, I reckon 111 official merch, like if you're wearing a sushi t-shirt to a 111 concert, it's like, that's pretty much merch. So I just want to, like, what was the initial strategy, like marketing-wise, strategy-wise for Pseushi, getting it started and going from a creative outlet online to making sure that there was high visibility for it, you know, getting it to the right people, getting it in the right sort of positioning and sphere?
Honestly, in terms of like strategizing and marketing, that's probably the most the biggest thing I've learned through doing the brand. Like, to start it, I knew nothing about it. Like, I couldn't even I can tell you the second thing about like marketing or strategy. I didn't even know what it was. I just wanted to put graphics out there. But then through you know, trying to build a brand and seeing what other people do, I've realized that making graphics or designing the thing is probably like 10-20% of it. And you have to put in groundwork around the brand to make sure it even gets out and people even see it.
Yeah.
Because like I know there's probably hundreds and thousands of kids out there that do make really, really, really cool shit, but they can't get it out there because of the other 80% of stuff that you got to do around the brand, which is sometimes sucks, but it is reality, I guess. And the pop-ups are like a big part of that, I think. I think it's definitely like it brings it into the real world when you throw something in a space and people can engage with other people that are into it or like the people that made it. But it was definitely like pretty nerve-wracking every time I did it. Like I am the sort of person that have like terribly anxiety even throwing myself like a birthday party, which is like why I never really do it. And like having to do it for like your brand or business and thinking, what if like 5 people turn up? It's like really nerve-wracking. But like the people in Sydney have just shown me so much more support than I could ever expect, and it's just every single pop-up I'm just like, wow, like these people just come and like drink lemon beer and like buy t-shirts. It's crazy. Like
really small sidetrack. Are you from Sydney? Where'd you grow up?
Okay, so I was born in Brisbane in 1992, and oh god, people thinking, damn, he's old as shit. And my family moved back to Taiwan when I was like 1, so I barely spent any time there. And then I lived the next 9 years of my life in Taiwan, Taipei, Taiwan, and moved back to Brisbane when I was 9 with my family. Finished high school there in 2009 and moved to Sydney for uni.
Right, amazing.
So
well,
it's kind of
There's so much going on.
Yeah.
No, it's great. So, where were we? I wanted to ask. I was going to ask this maybe a bit later, but we're on the thing now. Obviously, there's the other 80% of starting a brand. Maybe a bit more lighthearted. Like, what's one of those things in that 80% that is just hell? Whether it's like, you know, packing everything or like,
man,
just the one thing outside of the designing and the t-shirts that just is like the biggest nuisance, pain in the ass thing to do.
I can't really like pinpoint a certain thing. It's, if I could grab one thing out of it, it's probably like, I don't know, having to work with assholes like Dom upstairs and trying to figure it out. I think anyway, shout out to Dom.
Yeah.
Great shoot with Chris Luffy. Thank you, appreciate it.
Yeah, that was
really fun. But I don't know, to be honest, like some of the things I just like never really even thought that existed and you have to do is like customer service and like, right, it's like people like, sorry, I didn't put my unit number on, my package is going back to you, and I'm just like, really? Like, write your address properly, like why is your zip code wrong, or like, I don't know. Something else would maybe be like, oh god, I'm gonna go on a big rant now, but
this is the platform for you to just let go of every single piece of angst you've had.
I guess you can cut this out if you want to.
No,
but,
no edits.
No edits. Oh shit. Okay.
It's like a therapy session. Just let it out.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know. Like just things like carrying like 100 parcels in a box and wheeling it down Crown Street at like 30 degrees heat. Yeah. That always sucks. Just stuff like okay, think about if you had an intern right now. Yeah. And the stuff that you would make them do.
All the best
all
stuff.
That shit.
And I've done some dodgy internships, so I'm ready to get it.
Right. It's my turn now.
I remember one of my things was we did our first t-shirt run, I'm like, oh, it shouldn't be too hard to pack 20 t-shirts. I remember just my back killing me.
It's
I'm,
terrible.
like, taking photos of every leg.
Yeah.
Oh, it was just hell.
Like the Ozpose tracking number.
Oh, don't even get me
It's like
started.
putting it in manual. Oh man, like, I'm like cross-eyed by the end of it.
My
It's
back,
like
yeah. Just like doing it on my bed as well, so just standing up like this. Just like,
it's terrible.
oh,
Like it's always like a mixed feeling when you have a release and it goes well and you're like, oh, that's mad, but you're thinking about
I'm gonna
the
pack all
100
these.
parcels you've got to pack tomorrow, and you're like, this is what I gotta do, I guess.
Your turnaround's really quick as well in terms of purchase, shipping number. There's a work ethic there.
I try. I really try.
That's a big compliment.
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
right.
because I know I value that when I
Yeah.
buy something. I want it
Yeah,
like
it's
I
so
I really want it, but
Especially
yeah.
in a day and age that to get a bit deeper. There's a big pre-order culture now where it's like if you buy a t-shirt, even from like the US or whatever, anywhere, I don't know. Internally, I'm like 2-3 weeks minimum because of how many people just do pre-orders, just mass pre-orders,
yeah,
and stuff like that. But so it's nice to have the parcel 2 days later, be like, what? Like it'd almost be a surprise.
right.
And then you get it straight on. Where it's like you see the lookbook release, and it's like all of a
Yeah.
sudden it's in your hands. It's like, wow, that's crazy, and it just adds to like the attachment you have to the brand, in my opinion. Another really interesting thing that I've noticed is with the hoodie, I've got the one with that one.
Oh yeah, the Ava hoodie. Yeah.
I noticed that when you first posted the design for that, it was like close to a year ago. And I'd commented.
Oh, wow,
on
you've
that.
been keeping an eye on it.
Yeah, because I was just scrolling back last night, being like, "What's going on?" And I saw it. I'm like, "Holy shit, that's the one I've got." And I commented on it, tagging my mate, being like, "This is hard." Ended up buying it like a year later. So you do tease the designs out a lot, progressively and that sort of thing. And I just wanted to wonder, like, where does the process of a collection start? Like, do you categorize them by the time you design it, or is it more like you have all these ideas and you sort of just bunch them together and see what works with what?
It really depends. I think some graphics will spur out of, obviously, like that one comes from an anime I saw.
Yeah.
It's like because they're all based on certain things that make, I guess, an impactful moment in my brain. And sometimes as that happens when it's fresh, I'll put an idea down or it'll grow into something, but it might not be the best time or it might not be the best collection to have that thing out.
Yeah.
So sometimes something will live in my brain or on my computer for a year or two before that moment comes.
Yeah.
But yeah, sometimes it's just about seeing for me, it's just about seeing like what fits at that time and what fits visually, what fits conceptually.
Yeah.
It can vary a lot, I guess.
Amazing. Also wanted to, and I saw like, I love Jay-Z so much. Like, just like that run of like,
Yeah.
you know what I'm talking about. Like, Hold You Down 3 Summers, Jay-Z. And obviously the Von Dutch tee with the Pseushi tee. And I've got a really funny story about the devil on that tee, but I'll tell after I ask this question.
Okay.
How often are you inspired by, because obviously Jay-Z comes from music and like from your conversation today, it's like obviously quite intertwined with like hip hop culture and just music culture generally. How often are you inspired visually by things that aren't visual? So like by music, by nature, by...
I would say like, I try and bring up that percentage as much as I can.
Yeah.
Whether it's like 60 or 70%, whether it's movies, documentaries, or like books I've read or memories I've had. Because when I'm looking at something visually, a lot of the times that's already someone's interpretation of a thing that happened to them. So it's like, it's hard to like just jump on a thing and keep diluting it and call it my own when I probably should be going back to the source and do something original to start with. But sometimes you just see a graphic and you're like, that's fine. And that was the case for the Von Dutch tee. Like, I think he was wearing that tee in like a documentary or a video with
Black
Rick
Album
Rubin.
ones? Yeah.
Yeah. And I think he was doing 99 Problems in that tee, and I was just like,
that's so sick.
Crazy. Like that. Yeah. Even the colorway, I was like, I can't even change the color because it's just like done. Like
Big move.
Yeah.
Yeah, so funniest story, the way that Devil is walking with the thing over his shoulder, and like this is one of the craziest coincidences I've seen.
Right.
My mate Pat, shout out Pat, drew something like almost identical.
Oh no.
With them, but he was holding a mushroom because we had
Yeah.
like this thing about mushrooms.
Okay.
And he was holding a mushroom, and then like we just had it on his computer, and then we saw the
Right.
t-shirt come out, and we're like, fuck.
Yeah.
And it's just like
Oh,
it was like.
man.
Anyway,
That's
it's
a
just
shame.
it's just like a funny coincidence, but it happens.
That sucks.
And it's crazy how similar it is, like in just like the angle it's walking and how it's holding the mushroom. And
I mean, like, this comes back to that Devil.
Yeah.
I obviously didn't draw it from scratch. Like, so many people reference that character, and it's like, because people are so right now, people are in like so aligned on things and in what they take inspiration from. It's inevitable that people are gonna arrive at similar points in their creative journeys, and I'll be the first to say what I make is not unique.
Yeah.
Like, especially if it's merch for the same subculture that you feel like you're a part of, and unless you're the one that like started a movement or like a culture, don't try and claim shit as yours. Like, you're just a part of it or a participant like everyone else.
Yeah.
Just acknowledge the culture that you're in and the people that started it, instead of feeling like you, I don't know, started streetwear or some shit. It's like,
I am Virgil Abloh.
Yeah. Come on, dude.
Did you catch the all good if you haven't, I don't know your thoughts on Virgil, but the Pop Smoke artwork he did this morning that came out.
Oh man.
Alright, that's enough.
I
That's
saw
enough of a
that.
reaction.
I did see that.
Everyone's clowning him. The internet can clown him. We don't need to clown him enough.
Like, I don't even know what to think of Virgil anymore, because I've watched lectures from him, and I've listened to interviews that he's given out, stuff that he said, and I'm constantly going between, oh wow, this guy's really intelligent, I like the way he thinks conceptually, he's got some real knowledge to offer, and he'll just do something that's just like,
It doesn't align. It feels like, I don't know, maybe you agree as well, where it's like the things he says and the things he stands for, and then you look at an off-white t-shirt and you're like,
that's the thing.
it feels like there's a disconnect. I don't know.
When I've defended Virgil in the past, I've said, I like Virgil Abloh as a person, and I think he's really smart, blah, blah, but the shit he makes, I can't really back it.
Damn, we burned the Pseushi Virgil collab.
Man, fuck that guy.
Yeah, but I feel like, I think it's super interesting how Pseushi has sort of not become, because I know you'd hate hearing this, but like it's become like the unofficial, maybe Sydney sort of inner west culture rap.
Oh, I definitely wouldn't say that.
Yeah,
but
I feel like it's a part of that culture, not deliberately, but just because people creatively in that world might think similarly to you in that world, and because of that, Venn diagram of values, say, it's sort of aligned like that. And you see it so much in all, like, a lot of the most successful Australian bands. Like, you think of Perks and Mini, and like how integral they are to a dance culture.
Yeah.
By coincidence as well, really, because the stuff that graphically dance people like, they're the stuff that they happen to be making. So it's like, oh, we may as well just buy those clothes. So I think it's super interesting how Pseushi as well is sort of intertwined with those underground music cultures, whether hip hop or dance as well, because I see so much Pseushi at dance shows too.
That's crazy. Yeah.
So I think it's super cool.
I've always it's not something that I've like tried to do, but obviously being mentioned next to places like Pam and like brand stock to supply or whatever, it's or being seen in the same context as that is makes it feel worth it, I guess.
Yeah. Oh. Another question as well. Might be a bit selfish in asking this, but
Right.
I don't care.
Okay.
What were some of the early sort of pitfalls you fell in with Pseushi? Some like not regrets, but maybe some mistakes you made, some big mistakes you made that you learned from early on, that you sort of held on to till now.
I don't know. I think there's been some big ones that's like you over. Here's a big one. So like sometimes, I guess a lot of people feel the same thing, whereas their creative outlet might be music or film or something that's like consumer facing. You might reach a point where like you really want to do something conceptually, but you're like, oh, maybe people won't get that, or maybe they won't care enough to go deeper, so I'll just sell out and make this thing. But I've learnt that people do give a shit, and like they can tell very easily when you haven't tried, and when you've just put something out there without thinking that deep about it, or like people do care, because that's the first reason why they're looking at stuff that you make anyway. They haven't just stumbled upon it and followed you on this journey for nothing. It's like people want to spend their hard-earned money on something that they want to care about. And I've made some like really lazy stuff in the past, thinking that like, oh, people just want a shirt that says sushi on it, it'll be, this will sell.
Gangbusters.
No. Yeah. I think that's been really like humbling to know, like, you'll never be at a point where like you won't have to try. And I think that's a really good thing. If anything, it was like encouraging, because it like confirmed the feeling of like people are looking closely at what you do, so you better like try just as hard, if not harder, than the day you started it.
Amazing.
I think that's a good lesson.
Yeah, that's exactly what we wanted to hear. Shit, we've been going for 40 minutes.
How long do they usually
This length.
Yeah. Okay.
This last question, everyone hates this question.
Right.
I have to ask it. You have to like neck nominate someone to come on Parry Talks. Someone that you think's story would be cool to hear. Someone that, just deserves the platform, deserves to speak their mind.
Man, I think one name comes to mind. He's been a huge part of what I do, and he hates being on camera as well. So I'm just gonna put it out there. Big boy, Chris Luffy.
Big man.
You don't have to go very far. He's probably like right there. So
I'll just go get him now, babe.
Yeah, actually, I'll just go put him on now.
Yeah.
I think he'll have very unique stories on what his perspective is, because he obviously he has his fingers in a lot of different parts. So I think he's got a very unique perspective on what he's also just 100% about Sydney.
Yeah.
He's dedicated like so much time and effort in Sydney, so I think it'll be interesting.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Parry Talks, first episode back. Big mood. Top of the description will be that Google Excel sheet still of all the black artists you can support on Bandcamp. Bandcamp are waiving their fees every first Friday of the month. So whenever that happens, go support those artists. If you're listening on Spotify or whatever, just go to my Instagram. It'll be in my bio. Wes, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Also,
it's been fun.
If there's ever a sushi party in the future, sushi whatever, sushi event, sushi blah, blah, blah.
There will be one.
And if you find me there, I'll buy you 2 drinks straight away. And you quote this episode.
I don't drink though.
Oh no, not you. I support.
You can still buy me.
I'll buy you.
I'll have a Coca-Cola or something.
Pepsi Max or Coke?
Definitely Coke.
You're a sinner. That's the worst. That's the worst take on this whole episode.
Oh jeez.
Parry Talks. Thanks for listening, guys.
Thanks.